Bear with me. Doing things a little differently between Zoom and YouTube today. Okay, there we go. Okay, I think we are ready to go.
And it just turned 5 o'clock, so we are set. We've got, yep, Anna's here. Okay, we're good. All right, we'll call.
I'm not sure who Dean is.
River.
Sorry. We have a person in the waiting room who is Dean, and I'm not sure, is anybody expecting someone named Dean? Okay, thank you.
All set?
Yep, sorry.
It's just fine. All right, we'll call this meeting of the Port of Hood River Commission to order. Are there any modifications from staff to the agenda?
Yes, we have one, which is to remove consent item B for further review.
Okay. Anything else I did not know about from commissioners? Okay.
None for Commissioner Strike.
Commissioner Fox, no. Was there any public comment received outside the item? I believe we have one item.
Yeah, we have one written public comment statement from Eric Sanford, which you all received via email regarding marina security, and no other public comment at this time.
Good. All right, entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda with the noted change.
So move, Commissioner Strike.
Seconded, Commissioner Fox.
In favor?
Mr. Strike, aye.
Fox, aye.
Shepherd is aye as well. Consent agenda is passed. We have this evening one presentation, I believe, unless there are no other questions. We have one presentation this evening from Greg.
Just said, did we jump through informational reports? Okay. Good
It's
evening.
only there if anybody had a question and I received.
Understood. I apologize. I was just pulling it up and I wasn't tracking along. So the goal of this evening is just to receive some guidance from the commission as far as the lots up in Odell. Lower Mill is what it's referred to. Primarily, the goal is to find out what the commission, what the port is willing to obligate towards the bridge project, because that has a direct effect on what the remaining parcels will look like. And so I don't know if necessarily that's something that I'll receive at this time, but I wanted to at least, or staff wanted to at least express the need for clarification on that. There's been talk about it being 5 acres plus or minus. And so that really will have a ramification on what the other parcels are there that are available. Secondly, it's just to confirm that the prevailing thought of retaining one or more of the lots is still what the commission wishes to proceed with, because essentially, as you might know, or as the memo explains, there's been an extensive amount of work preparing these sites to be shovel ready. COVID put a big stop on that, but the market has rebounded enough that staff is receiving inquiries of interest about sale of those parcels. Without firm guidance on where the port stands with it, I've been unable to field those questions effectively. So I just felt that we could have a discussion about where we see those parcels in our future as far as our revenue stream, and some guidance on how many acres we seek to obligate for our bridge project.
Great, thank you. And what I understand from past meetings and from past discussions, and Commissioner Strikes can remember more of this than me, but I do remember that there was a great deal of interest in selling some of these lots. There was also a discussion about holding on to one and or more of these for potential port development in the future. And so I guess each commissioner should definitely have their say on this. My preference would be to hold on to one, and I have a preference and sell the other ones like we intended to. But I'd love to hear from all commissioners on this.
Great, Commissioner Strike. Hey, Greg, whereabouts we at on the wetland mitigation? for
That project
Lot
is-
902?
We're looking to finish that this summer, or actually get into it. Permit has been essentially renewed each time. And I want to say that we have one, maybe this is the last renewal. So we're in a spot where we really need to decide if we're going to proceed with it. But that still needs to be accomplished. And so lot 902, which is the largest of the lots, just about 4.81 acres, it does still have a wetland. It's not shovel ready. And it needs a project there to get it ready for future construction.
And Greg, that funding has been budgeted for the prior budget?
As
For
far as
902?
I understand, yes, it's been budgeted. It just was slowed by COVID, like everything else.
Greg, you mentioned that the short-term leases have kind of have a strong desire. What kind of terms are they looking at?
I mean, quite honestly, they'd like as long of terms as they could get. It's for those functions, speaking with those particular entities, there's not really anywhere around that provides that type of service or facility, a lay down yard, a flat area. It's really just the question of whether it serves the port's future goal of job density, whether it creates enough jobs in that area to support sale or that type of function there. But both of those entities, they would wish to buy those parcels, quite honestly. But
Greg, is this a topic that we should address in greater detail in spring planning? This topic here, so you get a firm decision on it where to go, because I think we need all 5 commissioners here, because we're kind of been fragmented. I think we got maybe COVID has caused us to be a little bit lackadaisical about it. I think you need to have a solid direction, and I think we need to have a roundtable discussion about, you know, are we going to keep one? Are we going to go ahead and do short-term leases again? Do they have any complaints with the existing tenants? Are they going to be a problem for us for potentially selling the lots in the future for development? We need to have that conversation. I'm not sure the night's the right night for it, but could it wait till spring planning and make it actually a line item? So we get a fine answer for you.
I would agree. There's a lot of questions in the discussion. We could wax poetic for quite some time about it. There is a necessity to give an answer to the short-term leases that are expiring here soon. I suppose I could give a short-term extension, but yeah, as far as staff receiving multiple requests from private developers looking to purchase parcels and develop them for other functions besides the entities that are sitting on short-term leases now. So it's growing in anticipation. It would benefit staff to have some clear guidance on how best to proceed.
Yeah, because if the existing tenants hit our benchmarks and hit all our boxes, then we should look at them to sell it to them. But if it doesn't, we need to make sure that they're not an obstacle for future purchases.
That's a very astute point, and I don't know that discussion could be had at this point, but yes.
Greg, when you talk about, you talk like a 6-month short-term extension, would that appease them for right now, 6 months?
I think they'll take whatever they can get at this point. I mean, it's a preferred location for those 2 functions that are still there. So they're not looking to move anytime soon, and they're waiting for guidance from us or whether we're going to extend the ground lease while we figure out what we want to do or sell to those individuals.
When are the leases up?
So 2 of them are up. One is on a month-to-month, so it's a holdover clause. And the next has, I apologize, I don't have the top of my head. I want to say it has 1 more month at the most. So
Yeah, I was going to talk a little bit about potential laydown area for the bridge. If we could, I would rather we wait until we get this management contract in place. And one of the things they should be looking at in this first year is a laydown plan. I'm a little concerned. I don't know whether this would really be a good laydown area or not because of the roadway down to the port, you're going on 35, you got to get under that railroad overpass at Whiskey Creek Road is one. And then down there, you've got that turn going around,
Button Bridge.
yeah, around on the bridge and then underneath 84. I think that's going to be another problem unless it's just a relatively small light load. So if we could, I'd like for the bridge management contract to take a look at this and see what they think and give us some guidance on that.
No, I agree with you, Mike. I had that highlighted in my notes here too. I think the logistics of it is going to be costly and not efficient if we utilize that area. Now, have we discussed the Marina Green in great detail? And if we have, what's been the response?
Well, the issue with the Marina Green, and I think we need to go test that again with the management contract. There was some agreement set almost 50 years ago when the marina was put in that may preclude us from using that whole area there. I think it's worth going back and testing that because to me, that's the logical place to put.
Right. Mike,
Put
didn't
it
it,
just
doesn't
right
it,
there.
Jerry, Anna, doesn't that fall under development, not for a temporary staging area? If my recollection is correct. So I would question that if that's actually a deterrent for us to utilize Marina Green.
I'm not aware of a development restriction like that. What I am aware of, and when you're talking about the Marina Green, that's near the marina where it's a green open space.
Copperfield, Jeff.
That there was a ballot measure passed, submitted by citizens and passed that restricted the use of that area. However, that, as discussed earlier, that measure could be superseded by a port action.
Yeah, my gut feeling is, guys, is that the community, the constituents want the bridge. And I think that they'd be willing to at least look at that, to challenge that, to maybe correct it or maybe identify what it really interpreted as it was written for. But for me, I don't see the lower handle as a logical, it may be a subcategory logical place to have a staging area, but for the most part, I think that's going to be a nightmare.
Okay,
Yeah,
I think having a conversation about lay down for the bridge is somewhat off topic here. I think it's an excellent idea to have that looked at before decisions are made. I think it's very intelligent there to do that. But we're going to find out where and how over the course of this next phase of the project. This was originally developed. Port put a lot of money into this, as Commissioner Strike certainly knows, to get this land shovel ready. The intent was to sell it off. If that's going to change, let's have that conversation at spring planning if you guys want to. Let's chat about that. Of course, and we can chart a direction and give Greg specific instructions. If it needs to be pending a decision on laydown, that's fine. And we're going to do it. But we just don't know that now. So if we want to do that at spring planning and confirm exactly what we want to do, I'm fine with that. But I think you need some, and I think if we just tell them to give people an extension of X right now, that's fine. But if we're not going to have that, and having that discussion at spring planning is fine. If it comes back to us that we're not going to have a decision on laydown areas, or if we need to reserve that decision until after we have laydown area information, then we're going to have Greg see about some longer extensions before we really can take the next step. So do we want to have that conversation at spring planning?
When is spring planning?
April. Also
April
too,
5th.
I was just thinking, why couldn't we use lot 902 as laydown? Because it's going to be wetlands mitigation anyway. That's on the east side of it. We can utilize the north, south, and so we can utilize that if we need to. But yeah, Gregor needs to have some ideas what he needs to bring to spring planning. And I said, he needs to bring us information about the current tenants are they conducive to the environment? Are they the right mix and match for our development? And also, what are type of developers that are coming in that are interested in those lots? We need to know those things for spring planning.
How much money the port has spent at Lower Hannells Mill on development, getting it ready
Yeah,
to
and also
go.
too, make sure we still have that budgeted money for us to keep a lot and to develop it, not just make it shovel ready, but actually have it developed and have a revenue source.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
if you get, go ahead.
I
Greg.
was just saying that largely staff has been reluctant to entertain developers because it's been unknown how much acreage is going to be obligated. So you certainly don't want to waste anybody's time for putting together a proposal and reviewing said proposal. But if it benefits the entire conversation, then I will open that back up to the proposal, or at least the interest that I've received, and ask them to submit a proposal, and then we can discuss those. Those might be better discussed in executive sessions rather than spring planning, but it's largely been a reluctance to allow any movement forward without knowing how much we need to keep aside.
And if we're
Now,
going,
let me just interrupt. I think the spring planning is fine, but we're not going to know from the management contract at that time.
Gotcha.
I'm thinking the earliest that you're going to get something from the management contract realistically is probably October, November timeframe.
Commissioner
If we
Fox,
utilize, go ahead, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Commissioner Fox, would there be an indication on a worst case scenario of acreage needed?
Yeah, my guess right now, in total, they're going to be looking for around 9 to 10 acres.
Okay.
And now that's in one spot. You can bust it up into a couple of spots. You don't want to do too small of spots, but 9 to 10 acres is probably what we're looking for.
Gotcha.
If you look at
this commission,
lot 9, I'm sorry.
no, I just want to know, is it important to this commission to reserve a decision on development until we know the answer to that laydown question?
You got lot 902 is 4.81 acres. There's access of a 35 existing. That's not going to be developed in the near future. We get to put more capital into it. So we've got probably at least 3.5, 4 acres allocated already that we can give a green light to that is to grade. And I said, I just don't think that's a good choice, a good alternative. So I would think that personally, if we could go ahead and utilize 901,
Thank you, Jen.
then I would not worry about allocating, 10 acres out there for a laydown area. I would just utilize 902.
I would agree with you, Hobie. I really don't think this is going to be the spot where we really want to use. If anything, I believe we're going to end up going across the river somewhere up around the lumber yard, somewhere, that we can get to it by barge. I think trying to haul something down 35 is just not going to work. There's too many curves there.
Any dialogue with Dickey Farms? Mike?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Okay, for staging areas. Okay. But yeah, I think it'd be helpful if Gregor could just test the waters and see who is interested in what type of development they were looking at. It doesn't have to be names, but it can kind of give us a category of what type of development maybe go in there. That way we can make a better sound decision long-term that checks all our boxes as far as employment, as far as good neighbors, and those things.
Copy that. I would tend to agree. Let's see what the proposals are, and whatever doesn't get picked off or suggested for private development, maybe that is the parcel that the port considers keeping themselves. But without really reviewing or allowing a chance to receive and review any of these proposals, there is a lot of unknown, but it opens up an opportunity for a greater discussion topic.
Are we still open to sale of these properties as was intended up there when it was developed, or do we wish to reserve that until we see? Because Greg's going to get asked, that'll be his first question he's asked. Is it for sale? or is it for lease? This is the first question. And if most of his high-end proposals right now want to purchase, which that just surprises me zero, are we open to hearing about that and see what those look like?
You know, I've always been in the impression that we're going to hold one back and sell the balance. So, and I think we budget for that. And I think Fred has us down that direction for cash flow. So I'm fine with selling.
Would there be a particular parcel that the commission would look at now and think that if we were to save or retain one, would be strategic?
Well, Greg, I think we answered that years back. You might want to go back to Ann's file. And I thought we designated it a lot.
There's been, in fact, Jen, if you don't mind scrolling down just a little bit more, there's been substantial work to show what a site plan might look like if the port developed one or two parcels. And largely these were looked at as 1015 and 1101. And that was the prevailing thought was the port would retain two. And if that's still the going mentality, then that gives better direction as far as what staff can feel comfortable marketing to private development.
You know, Greg, it's kind of early, but the new CFO would be a big factor in this, as far as looking at our cash flow and looking at our revenue streams. That would be, to me, a big determining factor if he was to look at that and go, you know, let's sell, get the cash up front and reinvest it, or no, we need a long-term cash flow. Let's go ahead and land lease or retain two, not one, or retain none. I mean, that's his job. He's supposed to bring that to us and give us suggestions so we can go ahead and process it and make it a good decision, good, intelligent, sound decision.
But in the meantime, it doesn't hurt to ask them, hey, what do they want? What are they offering? What's the market?
Yeah, for the right deal, I guess anything could be available. When I think about access and trucking, there are 3 lots that are far easier to access than the other one, but let them tell us. I mean,
Yeah.
Perfect.
so I'm also fine with reserving and keeping option open on sale there as well. Commissioner Gehring, how do you feel about that?
It sounds like we're keeping all options open right now. I would not want to go backwards and not listen to previous commission's advice. It sounds logical to me to retain a couple and sell a couple, but I definitely would like to hear the options.
Is that enough, Greg?
That's perfect. Yeah, I appreciate it. Yep.
Hey, one last one, Greg, on 902, do we know how much money we need to correct the wetland remediation issue?
Let me see if I can bring up the CIP real quick. I don't off the top of my head. Let me see if I can bring it up.
And we don't necessarily need it tonight, but when you bring forward, you know, after you talk to these other groups, it'd be interesting to know.
In
So
your
we-
development costs, 2.7 mil?
That's what the port has spent thus far on the entirety. We've got budgeted a $25,000 placeholder for that wetland infill project.
That's nothing.
It doesn't seem like a whole heck of a lot, but that is what I apologize. That's for permitting. We have $250,000 for the project itself. I needed to scroll down
Sounds a little
further.
better.
Yeah, that is for the permitting costs. And so, yeah, we're looking at what, $275,000 additional to get that wetland project complete and ready for sale.
All right. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you all.
And now it is time for what I believe is our first ever Deputy Executive Director report.
Yes, thank you, everybody. Just a couple of highlights. As you know, Michael is on vacation until the 7th. I've been serving as acting ED last week and this week, and I just want to express my extreme gratitude for all my colleagues here at the port. It has definitely been a team effort. Want to especially recognize Daryl Stafford, who has been working remotely while on vacation and responding to a lot of really time-sensitive and urgent messages from her tenants. She's a very dedicated person, and I wanted to say thank you to her especially. Also, of course, thank you to the facilities crew who stepped up in some immediate response for some vandalism that occurred over the weekend. They did a fantastic job cleaning it up. It is gone, and that was a really wonderful response. Just a few highlights. The Port of Cascade Locks sends its sincere apologies and an invitation for a rescheduled joint work session. In my report, you'll see the upcoming budget preparation schedule and the meetings there. It would be great to get a confirmation of your availability to meet on those dates. Please note that some of those dates are 4-hour daytime work sessions. And so we really need to make sure that you're able to attend based on your work schedules. A couple of other items to think about moving forward in March. As everyone I'm sure has heard, the indoor mask mandate will end on the 12th. So the commission really should discuss their feelings about returning to meetings in person. We had RadComp here last week who were able to complete the setup for our system in our conference room to be able to deliver, continue to deliver a live stream for in-person meetings that would also enable folks to Zoom in. It's really difficult to produce a hybrid in-person and Zoom meeting, and they figured it out and did a great job. So we're ready to do that on the 15th if the commission chooses to.
Genevieve, quick question on that. Last meeting, I requested that any commissioners that had a concern about that reach out to me, and I received none. And I asked the staff reach out to you guys. So I think as far as commission's concerned, we're fine with a hybrid if you can figure it out.
Okay. The nice thing about this meeting is that we do have some staff members that have a compromised immune systems, and this new system would continue to enable them to attend the meetings remotely. And obviously we have members of the public that would certainly be concerned about going into an indoor meeting. And this still allows public access for public comment or guests or any sort of reports from the public. So it really is the best of both worlds, and fingers crossed it works the first night we try it. Just a quick update on the marina. We had our deadline for the boat launch, floats, and ramp project today. We're still reviewing those bids, and we'll have a report for you at the next meeting. On the bridge, the facilities crew completed the shim work on the north end rocker bearings during a 5-hour closure that started at midnight on the 25th. And John, I'll have you report on that. And if you could also talk about the miscellaneous steel repairs that are coming up this Thursday.
Gladly. Good evening, commissioners. On Thursday, we lifted the bridge, took some measurements and figured out exactly how much we needed to shim those rocker bearings. We did that by, you could measure it on the top of the deck as well as how it sits in the cradle. We had shims on site. We put them in. We to what we measured. After a couple attempts, we figured out that we were a little too high. We were messing around with the bridge and we had about 3 different systems disabled. To be honest, we got the bridge stuck about 3 times during the night, but our staff was able to work through the problem and figure it out. We never had to call an engineer. And a lot of this was some pretty deep thinking into the system of how it worked. When you disable one small portion of that safety system that we installed on our bridge, it's like opening Pandora's box. Had all that worked out great, we probably could have completed the work in about 2 hours. But instead, we were able to open the bridge at 4:30. So we still made it within our budgeted time. We learned a lot about the rocker bearings, and we learned a lot about our bridge. I want to give the credit to Ryan Clapprich for putting together the work plan for that and thinking through the operation. That was all his brainchild, and he gets full credit for that one. So Want to talk a little bit about our lane closures tomorrow, Thursday. We have a full lane closures all day from 8 in the morning until we're done. We have the use of the ODOT UBIT truck, which is a rig that reaches around the bridge and gets us underneath there. And we're going to repair all the miscellaneous steel repairs that are on the fracture critical report. There's a lot of floor beam end plates and shims that are missing, 6 of them to be exact. We're going to get those reconnected and bolted back into place. And we're going to clean about 4 beams of the debris that are on the beams. And that will knock off that list. And some of those things have been on that list for many years, but it's been very difficult to get scheduled with ODOT to use their vehicle to do that. So I think we've made some connections there and built some bridges that are going to help us in the future. There'll be actually 2 bridge maintenance staff from ODOT there to help us, which is going to be very handy. We're very comfortable with this work, but those guys do that work every day in and out. So having them there to coach us through and give us advice is going to be very helpful. If anybody has any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them for you.
So John, this will close out all the action items from last year's fracture critical ODOT report, correct? Inspection
That's
report?
correct. And as far as we can look back in history, this will be the very first time that's ever been accomplished.
The first of many, right?
We're keeping up with it. That's what we do out here.
Good.
Thank you, John. And then just a couple of items on the legislative front. I wanted to note that the report that you received in your packet from Thorn Run, we had an update from that and also from Boswell Consulting. I think you have their report. I wanted to invite Kevin to give an up to the minute report on the status of our Bi-State Bridge Authority legislation.
Yep, absolutely. So I think everybody heard the news that the Oregon Bill 4089 is law or will be law. It's passed both the Senate and the House. So it is now going through the Washington process. We did have a hearing on yesterday, and it went through the House Transportation Committee unanimously. And so Brad indicated that the full House will hear that within the next 3 days, so certainly before the end of the week. So once that happens, then it is law in Washington. So at that point, then the Bi-State Working Group will be looking to work with Steve Siegel to start creating those commission agreements for each of the individual local government boards. The other thing I did talk to Brad about this afternoon was regarding the transportation plan that's coming through Washington. It was highly controversial, primarily driven by the refinery tax on states surrounding Washington, including Oregon. The Democrats in Washington have agreed to remove that refinery tax. And so there's a little bit of a hole, about a $2 billion hole, which he indicated there's a public works fund that they're going to try to backfill that with, but it looks promising. He says it's not done. It could go through a lot of other issues, but he says keep your fingers crossed, and he says it's looking decent, but until it crosses the finish line, we can't count on it. So anyway, that's an update, unless there's any specific questions.
And what you're talking about there, Kevin, is the $75 million from Washington State as a kind of a down payment on the new bridge.
That's exactly right.
Good. Hey, I want to commend Kevin. I think Kevin and the lobbyists have done an outstanding job, pushing this thing through. There was many people never thought this would happen this fast. And when you tie that into some things that are going on, trying to attract early money we're going in the right direction. I think the next challenge for us and for Kevin and the team is, I think Oregon and Washington are stepping up to the plate. We got to now go get the federal guys to pony up some money for us as well. So we'll be pushing on them next.
Well, Commissioner Fox, I just want to thank you for your leadership on this effort. And you have spent hours along with Mayor McBride and the commissioners from both counties. I mean, it's been hours upon hours of your personal time testifying in both Oregon and Washington. So I certainly appreciate your time towards this.
Well, thanks for saying that, Kevin, but forget that.
Well, and then.
On to the next one.
Sorry.
Kevin, I got froze out of the last comments, but I have a question for you. Is the substitute Senate Bill 5558, is that the substitute bill? Is that a Washington terminology? I never used that in Oregon terminology.
You're exactly right. What the difference between Oregon and Washington, in Washington, they put the S. So it's SSB, whereas in Oregon, they do the -1. So
the different requirements to make it a bill, or just substitute? Is it an existing bill?
It's just the way they do it. It's the same as the
nomenclature.
House Bill 4089-1 on the Oregon side. The SSB 5558 is basically showing that there's been amendments to the original bill.
Okay, great. Thanks, Kev.
Yep.
And then just one last thank you on the legislative front. President Shepherd and I were able to meet with gubernatorial candidate Tina Kotek this afternoon and brought her up to speed with all of the current bridge efforts. And I thought that was a really productive meeting. And then finally, I wanted to invite Daryl and Greg and John to provide an update on how we're addressing the security issues in the marina. We can't really go into a whole lot of detail since this is a public meeting and we're talking about security systems, but we wanted to really be sure to express to you that we're actively addressing these issues and working as a team. And as I mentioned, Daryl is working remotely and she has been corresponding with law enforcement and tenants throughout her vacation. I think we owe her a few more days of her time. And so thank you for that. Daryl, did you just have any comments, non-specifics, but any comments that you wanted to make?
Yeah, I think we are making really good headway, and I should have more information for you later. And if that's something we can talk about in executive session as well. But you can let your constituents know that we are diligently working on all different fronts to do what we can to figure out who is causing all the problems down there.
And I will add to that, our new night security patrols have added, thanks to John working on a change order with Best Defense. We have added dock walks to their nightly protocol, at least for the next couple of weeks, hoping to catch the folks that are causing these problems. So thank you to John for that.
Those began last night, Genevieve.
Yeah. And so if there's no other questions, that concludes my report.
All right, thank you, and thank you all. Some of these commissioner and committee reports, I don't know if there's anything to report, but I'll just run down there, and if there is anything, go right ahead. Was there anything from the Airport Advisory Committee?
The only thing to really share is that the committee decided to go to a quarterly schedule as opposed to a monthly. Just they felt that there wasn't enough information to meet monthly, but there still is an open opportunity should an emergency or necessity to meet more frequent. But we're going to go to a quarterly schedule for the AAC meetings.
Gregor, any word back from my comment to you on a phone call we had in regard to snow removal priorities?
Yes.
I guess I'll bring the commission up to date. I spoke with Greg earlier on the phone about the snow removal and the protocol and the procedure and priority. And I questioned far as the pilot, to me, priority one's the runway. And then transportation and building and everything else around, and then hangars will be last. But the way they had it kind of prioritized was that the business buildings would be plowed first, and then the runway, and then the hangars. And I just want to make sure that, due to the fact we're using federal money, that we're not obligated to address safety, priority one for the the pilot in the air and be liable? And that was my question to Greg.
Yes,
Thanks,
I reviewed the FAA guidance, and without having it up in front of me, largely it relates to what is reasonably appropriate for serviceability and operational ability. So in those moments when there is significantly deep snow, the reality that an aircraft is not going to be in the air is something that is conceded. Now, granted, there's a necessity to really assess each and every time, and John and I have spoken at it at length, and generally he and his team will gauge, is it necessary to get out there and get the runway done primarily, or is it necessary to get access to the facilities before the runway is even opened up per se? So there wasn't strong guidance that gave us a fear or a concern that we were not within FAA guidances or assurances. But it does require, and I think John and I, John may want to chime in on this, we thought it might be appropriate, or he thought it might be appropriate to have an actual snow removal report, so that way we can gauge what we thought when we as the port assessed the necessity for certain assets or areas to be opened up in sequence. Is that?
I'm building a quick check form that we can use on snow days. That can just go into our records. It'll show why we made decisions. Some mornings we might get there and it might be snowing so hard that it just investing time on the runway and the taxiway doesn't make any sense. Getting businesses open so they can conduct business out of there is a priority. Some mornings it may be just right to come out, clear that runway, and just move on through. It just has to be assessed on a day-to-day, snow-by-snow basis. But I think having a report of that and a record to look back on how we've made those decisions, should anything ever come up, just having that record and showing that we've made a conscious decision about our actions should help us in any kind of liability pointed our direction.
Oh, what a great idea, guys. I commend that. That's good information. We can fall back on it, and it justifies our actions. Job well done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, anything from Bi-State Working Group tonight?
Just real quick, we're meeting with ODOT tomorrow. Kevin and I am, and we're going to be talking about getting the team together to evaluate the upcoming RFP. And we'll go from there.
Sounds good. Commissioner Chapman's not here for urban renewal. Was there anything to report from anyone else?
Heather's on that committee.
Heather, was there anything to report there?
No, I didn't. I wasn't at the last meeting. Commissioner Chapman represented the port at the last meeting.
Okay, we'll put it on the agenda and for an update next time. Energy Council, Commissioner Fox, is there anything there?
Yeah, as we stated last time, Commissioner Chapman's going to be taking that over for me. But I do know the latest there is that the bridge did make it into the work plan. And I believe in March, they want to bring their work plan to the commission to give you a view of it. Go from there.
Perfect. Visit Hood River, I don't even know who to ask.
Well, I can just give you one quick report. The last quarter, we had a request from Visit Hood River that the next time we had our traffic and revenue numbers that we share with them are traffic numbers as part of their resources for planning. And in Fred's report that's included in your packet, there is the traffic report, and I'll be sending that over to Katie tomorrow morning.
All right. We don't have any action items tonight, so we'll just move to commission call. Is there anything, Commissioner Strike?
Yeah, I just want to stress the fact, I can't speak for the full commission, full board, but for me personally, I want to reassure that our constituents that we are going to address this theft and burglary problem we have at all our assets, port assets, and user groups will be addressed. I want to send a message out to those individuals that don't stop on port property. We are going to pursue you. We will throw money at this. We will get the individuals and remove them from our property and hold them accountable for our actions. I don't want my constituents to worry about their $300,000 asset being vandalized when we, as a port, should address it and be responsible for it, and we will. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Fox?
Yeah, just one real quick for John. John, when you were doing the lift on the bridge for the plates, I want to make sure that you feel very comfortable that you're backed up, that if you needed to call in engineering, you had all of the authority and that you needed to make that happen, regardless of budget and so on. If you need that help, you need to call for it.
Thank you, Commissioner Fox. We actually had WJE on, they were on call waiting for us in case we needed them. We had an electrical engineer at our beck and call at any moment, and we have a system that they can dial right into the computer and help us diagnose problems. So if we need the help, most of what we had was kind of borderline mechanical into electrical. It was mechanisms not compressing all the way, which weren't tripping switches. So some of those were hidden places we didn't know where they were. We figured it out.
I just want to make sure you know you got the support. If you need to make the call, make the call.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate that. We feel well supported.
Commissioner Guerin?
I just wanted to talk about the issue with not being able to hire personnel for the summer and wondering what we can do to attract summer personnel. At the Waterfront Advisory Committee meeting, pretty much every single waterfront stakeholder was super concerned about restrooms and trash. There are like 9 different stakeholders that all had an issue with restrooms and trash, and apparently we're having a really hard time finding people to take care of that. So I don't know how we can get creative with that.
John?
I'll step right in. Yes, to be honest, we have had an ad in the newspaper for a full-time position with benefits. We received 2, it's been in the paper now for over 2 months, and we've gotten 2 applications. This is for what I would consider a good job. And there is almost no interest in it. So if you're looking at summer help in the summer positions, there will be 0 interest at a job at under 20 anything. And even at 20, we might have a tough time filling. And we simply, when we open up the parks, we just don't have the staff to cover the hours. I mean, we could work my guys. We'd have to start committing them to being 5 hours a day plus over their regular hours to make that happen.
So let me ask a question, kind of breaking glass here a little bit. What's the age limit to fill these temporary positions? 18?
That's correct. Well, we can hire a 16-year-old or a 17-year-old as long as they have a driver's license.
Okay.
And their parents have permission. They still cannot run power tools and that kind of thing till they're 18. So
Got it. So
they don't do us much good.
Yeah. So have we thought about going into the schools, into the high schools, and seeing if we can't attract some summer hires that way, number one. Number two, how about going over into the tribes and see if we can't get some kind of an apprentice program going, with them to see if we can hire one of their younger people to come work for us during the summer. We may have to rotate it around a little bit to make it maybe a little bit more interesting instead of just picking up trash all the time, but maybe there's something there.
I think those are all really great ideas. And I think Genevieve can speak a little bit more to like maybe the high school outreach
Mhm.
But believe me, this is a conversation I don't let rest much right now. So we're talking about it. I've seen this problem coming, and we really plan on opening this up for discussion tonight, because the board is going to have to make some decisions to pay more. We're going to have to raise those wages. The problem with doing that is you raise those temp positions up, and now they're making as much as our guys who've been working here for as much as 25 years. That's pretty tough pill for those guys to swallow. So I think this budget season, we have some big decisions and some big topics to talk about as far as employment for staff, for laboring staffing. It's the discussion every single agency is having across the board. Every single business is having this discussion across the board. So that this is a great way to open it up and let me have my say, and say that, yes, I'm very worried that we won't be able to fill positions. I'm very worried about that. And coming into a third year, I got to think of what my crew has been through in 3 years just trying to keep up with this. We are there. It's a very tired group of men right now.
I feel like we can expect a budget request in the very near future, since we're going to be talking about it. And I would encourage you to make that, please.
I will, definitely.
Yeah, we anticipate, as Heather is noting, we've got to think outside of the box on how we do some direct recruitment for the frontline personnel, especially the seasonal personnel at the event site. Daryl and John and Michael and I, we've all been brainstorming ways to change the current job duties for some of the way that we kind of cut up the responsibilities now. That might change to be able to spread the load a little bit more. There are ways that we could maybe modify schedules in terms of who's in the parking booth, who's writing tickets, who's serving the bathrooms, who's doing garbage upkeep. So I think that the commission should certainly expect to see a bit of a jump on that line item, because we just cannot, the status quo is just not working for our visitors and our residents alike. And so we will be pricing heightened service levels and asking for your approval for those in spring. And we'll also be doing some new things to do some direct recruitment for those teenage folks that could really serve as stewards of the waterfront park more than we utilize them for right now.
I think we'll look forward to seeing that request and those needs there in a little more detail. And thank you, Commissioner Garing, for bringing that
We're
up.
working on it.
Thank you. Okay, I'm kind of echoing what Commissioner Strike said. As staff has had some unexpected headaches this week, so thank you for the prompt response and the good work. I was down, as Genevieve mentioned earlier, I was down at the office today. Couldn't even tell anything happens. I know that was a lot of work, so we appreciate that. All right, the only directive that I can think of from this evening's regular session was to make sure that the urban renewal report, if there is one, we'll reach out to Commissioner Chapman and see if there is one for next meeting. Outside of that, was there any directives noted outside of what we talked to Greg about, which is, I guess, a directive sort of, but.
Right. Just moving the Lower Mill conversation to spring planning and have staff bring the commission up to date with the existing tenants and possible new developers and who they might be, and a better read on the budget for that.
Excellent. Okay. Then we can recess the regular session and open an executive